maybe, after this video, somebody may have taken her. And so we've got to consider all possibilities at this point.
We're following new information on the desperate search for a teen girl who is missing and could be in imminent danger. This is the new video from police showing what may be 19-year-old Camila Olmos on that morning walk before she disappeared. The FBI is now involved searching for this girl, a girl who vanished after an early morning walk on Christmas Eve. And now, as the days pass, the concerns grow even more about what might have happened to her. And police say they are not ruling anything out, even the darkest possibilities. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey, real quick before we start this episode of On the Case, one of the most watched shows on YouTube, I want to talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm. They're a firm of more than 1,000 attorneys who have recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. And in the past few months alone, a client in Florida received $12 million when insurance offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, another client was awarded $26 million. That's 40 times the insurer's offer. Morgan & Morgan makes it easy to fight for what you deserve. You can even start a claim from your phone. So if you're injured, you can start a claim at forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also click the link below or scan the QR code on your screen. But when you hear law enforcement in Texas say a girl may be in imminent danger, it makes you really worry that this case may be much more than just a missing person or a runaway. Law enforcement in Bexar County, Texas, that's where San Antonio is, are urging the public to provide any information they can to find 19-year-old Camila Mendoza Olmos. Her friends and family call her Cammy. Now, this is the new video that was just released by the Bexar County, Texas authorities overnight. I know this is really dark video, but I want you to take a look at this because the fact that it's dark, it's certainly not helping in this search, but it could be a critical clue as to where she went on the morning of Christmas Eve. This is Dashcam video of someone walking on the side of the road. The driver who took this, after seeing the news coverage of this story, decided to reach out to law enforcement saying that they just saw someone who might fit the description. Again, we don't know 100% if this is Cammy, but police say the clothing does appear to match up with the description that they have given of what she was wearing when she left her house. The sheriff in Bexar County says this was captured only a couple blocks from Cammy's home. Now, before I get into the possibilities investigators are following right now, I want to go to when this search began and lay out for you the timeline that we know of at this point. Authorities say that Cammy was last seen before 7 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, December 24th in the Caspian Spring neighborhood of Bexar County outside San Antonio. The sheriff's office believes that she was spotted on a neighbor's surveillance camera outside her home, searching inside her car for something. Now, the footage reportedly cuts out, per deputies, but it is believed that Cammy left on foot because her car was still at her home when her mom called 911 to report her missing. And this is after she reportedly called her daughter's boyfriend and dad. That's according to News Nation. Now, deputies say that Cammy may only have her car key and her driver's license on her. A big clue here and a big part of concern, perhaps a big hurdle for investigators, is that her phone is not on her. It was found inside her house. And when you think of a teenager who's often online, that certainly is notable that she would not take her cell phone.
She left behind a cell phone, which, as you know, a young person that age, or even a not so young person, who leaves their cell phone behind, right? It's unheard of. But she left behind a cell phone, she left behind an iPad, and so we've had the opportunity to go through some of that digital evidence. Again, thanks to the help from our friends at the FBI. I can't part with too much from what was gleaned from that, but we were able to glean some information.
So the sheriff is giving a good amount of information, but he wouldn't go too deep into what they might have found on her cell phone. Now, Cammy's mom, her name is Rosario, she told Texas media outlet KSAT, quote, "I called her cell phone, but the cell phone was there on the bed and it was turned off. I put it to charge and went out to look for her. I thought I would find her like other times, walking, and we would come home together." Cammy was reportedly supposed to go dress shopping for an event with her best friend, who's also named Camila, on the day that she disappeared, so she had plans. That friend told the New York Post that Cammy's last words on the phone to her the night before were, "Bye, Cammy, I love you. That's certainly something to think about as we kind of dive into all the possibilities. And again, law enforcement, they aren't ruling anything out at this point. Bexar County authorities say that Cammy, who is around 5'4", she weighs roughly 110 pounds, was wearing a black North Face sweater with baby blue accents. She was wearing baby blue pajama shorts and white shoes. More than 100 people have searched a 3-mile radius where Cammy was last seen looking for any sight of her. And at this point, we don't believe that they found anything. Law enforcement hasn't said if they found anything. We really have only had that development of the Dashcam video that the sheriff put out overnight. It's not only the Bexar County Sheriff's Office looking for this girl right now. The FBI, even the Department of Homeland Security, they are helping in the search. San Antonio is roughly only an hour and a half, 2 hours of a drive from the U.S.-Mexico border. The Bexar County Sheriff said that the Department of Homeland Security is looking to see if Cammy may have crossed the border into Mexico, and they're even looking at flight logs to see if she was able to make it to an airport and get on a plane. Now, at this point, the sheriff isn't ruling anything out, but what makes the disappearance of Cammy so concerning is that her family says it's just so out of character for her to do something like this. The Bexar County Sheriff's Office said in a statement after she went missing, quote, Camila's mother stated that Camila normally goes for a morning walk. However, she became concerned when Camila did not return within a reasonable period of time. The sheriff said that Cammy likes to go on walks, and to this point, it appears that she was also on her regular route, something that she typically did, not out of the ordinary.
Where she was, is that a normal place for her to go on her walk?
It's along her normal route, from my understanding. This young lady was is a bit of a fitness enthusiast. She was very much into going to the gym and very much into walking, but again, normal part of her route.
The sheriff also said in a news conference that Cammy has struggled with depression. She recently broke up with her boyfriend, but he did note that that situation, it seemed amicable.
We've got several different theories working, and we've got to, the theories that we're working upon run the whole gamut of possibilities. We do have, unfortunately, some indications of suicidal ideations from this young lady in the past. We do know that there was some depression issues in the past. But as a young person, what young person doesn't have bouts of depression at a certain point? So we can't necessarily afford to just say, oh, well, that must be what it is. We've got to consider all possibilities.
So mental health also could be a driving factor into her disappearance. It definitely could have played a role, but you also heard the sheriff kind of push back, saying that it's not out of the ordinary for someone her age to struggle with something like depression.
We've got to consider all possibilities at this point. Unfortunately for us, we can't start narrowing that down until some evidence takes us to that.
So here once again is that new video that the sheriff is talking about, the dark dash cam footage of a pedestrian. It could be Cammy. They aren't 100% sure. The sheriff also says that he hopes by showing this video, by telling the story of a person who didn't think it would amount to anything, but just decided to give the sheriff a call after seeing the news story, that can motivate other people to look at dash cam footage or surveillance video, Ring doorbell cameras to see if there is any sight of this girl, not just on Christmas Eve when she went missing, but roughly over the past week since this story started. The Bexar County Sheriff did say that he believes that Cammy could be in imminent danger. Now, those are obviously very strong words. Certainly gets our attention in the media when you hear a teen that is missing could be in imminent danger. The sheriff said that they're not ruling out really any possibility that she left the country or she crossed on her own, or even some of the more darker possibilities. Was she kidnapped? Was she taken? Is this a human trafficking situation? None of that is confirmed, but it's also not possibilities that have been ruled out. Now, it was confirmed that authorities outside the United States, that they are also looking for Cammy right now. The Attorney General's office in Nuevo Leon, which is right across the border in Mexico, put out a notice with Cammy's picture asking for information. So a lot of the questions right now, certainly the internet speculation, is what could have happened to this girl? Did she run away from home? Did she run away with someone? Was she taken? Could she have been abducted from her quiet neighborhood outside San Antonio? Since Texas is a border state, it has long been the focus for authorities when it comes to human trafficking. According to a national human trafficking hotline report, in 2024, the hotline received more than 2,000 signals, which could be emails, online chats, text messages, and actual calls. Nearly 700 1,500 of those signals came from victims or survivors of human trafficking, according to this report. And those signals then led to more than 1,000 cases being identified in 2024 involving more than 2,000 victims. Now, back in 2022, KSAT, the TV station in San Antonio, they spoke to a woman named Chara McMichael, who is the executive director of the trafficking division of a nonprofit called BCFS Health and Human Services. And according to McMichael, Bexar County creates the perfect corridor for human traffickers because multiple major highways intersect there. McMichael claimed around 80,000 minors are victims of human trafficking in Texas, and that involves not only sex work, but also slave labor in places like factories, kitchens, and hotels. And runaways are especially vulnerable. This was a stat that really caught our attention. McMichael told KSAT statistics will show that within 24 hours, 1 in 3 runaways is sold into sex trafficking. Approximately 40% of runaways end up in labor trafficking. Now, again, we don't know what is happening in this case or whether this is a human trafficking situation that we're talking about involving this young girl, Cami. Right now, it's unclear if Cami left on her own or she was taken, but it is important to mention that and put that into context nonetheless. Her family says that it would be very out of character for her to just leave, especially without her phone. Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar also said that he wanted to make sure that Cami hadn't been swept up in an immigration raid. The sheriff says Cami is a U.S. citizen, but it was possible that she could have been detained. The sheriff told ABC News, quote, "That was a personal concern, so I had it checked to make sure that there were no stops, no detentions, and that she's not somewhere in a federal detention facility. That is something we needed to check." Now, Sheriff Salazar also told ABC that Cami could be in imminent danger, and that got a lot of attention. He was asked about that yesterday, and this is what he said about that line, imminent danger.
With regard to the imminent danger, what led to the clear alert was the information that we had that there may have been some suicidal ideations in the past, some attempts to self-harm in the past that were a consideration. And so, again, it's just one of the many theories that we're exploring at this point. But, you know, obviously a young person like this, small in stature, very young, very impressionable, I would say anytime they're away from home, and we don't know where they are, there's always an immediate danger.
Now, Rosaria, who is Cami's mom, spoke to KHOU-TV in Houston, and this is what she said, quote, "Pray, pray, pray, and ask from the heart to God and the angels and the Virgin Mary, whoever you believe in, to please for my daughter to return." Now, anyone with information on Cami's whereabouts, they're asked to contact the Bexar County Sheriff's Office in Texas. The number right here on your screen, we'll also put it in the episode description as well. That number, 210-335-6000. You can also send a message to the BCSO Missing Persons Unit at missingpersons@bexar.org. Joining us now to talk more about this search, it's going to be 1 week tomorrow. Joining me now, Sonny Slaughter, law enforcement instructor. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. I know you've been following this case along with us here. This surveillance video, dash cam video that comes out, you really don't see a lot. What can you take away from this video as they're trying to figure out where she went?
So I saw, it's great. Thanks for having me, Chris. And you're right. We're like almost a week out and still no sign of her. The dash cam video is not clear. It's really grainy, and the only resemblance that I could think that law enforcement would say that could be her is that the person was wearing a hoodie, you know, a dark hoodie, and that they had on shorts. But what it does say is the direction in which she was, the area from where she moved from, when we know that the surveillance around the home, the video around the home of her looking into the car, it gives us some sense of direction of where she may be, where she may have traveled to. So that, you know, kind of puts them in an area to start looking more intensely. And I did see that, you know, search crews have gone out again, and they have been combing the areas and, you know, going through brush and trees, and that they're looking in Mexico, you know, for her now too. So
yeah, and it's about roughly 2.5, 3 hours of a drive to get to like Laredo, Texas, which is right on the border with Mexico. And, you know, just from, you know, anybody who's kind of driven over the border, it's a lot easier to just kind of go across. There's far less searches and checks going into Mexico than when someone comes out on the other side. So it's very possible that she might have just walked, if she made it that way. And of course, how do you get that far?
Right.
She would have had to get into a vehicle if she would make it to the Texas border, and all of that. Nothing seems to be ruled out at this point. And then you have the sheriff he's very media friendly in Bexar County, using the term imminent danger. He did provide a little context there that she, I guess, had some emotional mental health issues, and that also factors into it. But knowing that you have a sheriff putting those words out there and not ruling anything out kind of a week later, what does that tell you?
It says that they're concerned. They are definitely concerned for her safety. Imminent danger is like imminent threat, that they do not believe that she is safe right now. Whether she is safe because she has some mental health issues going on personally and she could have harmed herself. But they also are not ruling out, based on the way that they are operating, that she could have come into harm. The grainy video does tell us something, that she was near traffic. And as you said, in the area where you have traffic, it's not too far from the border. I used to live in San Diego, and my house was in walking distance of the border. And like you said, it's easy to walk over and cross and go in without the checks, as opposed to coming back through. And if she was near, if that was her in the video, and cars were, going by, that does present an opportunity where someone could have placed her into a vehicle. She could have been snatched, because there's not a lot of cameras in that particular section where she was, that they have shared with us. But they could have placed her in the vehicle and got across the border faster, if that is what they're thinking, than if she tried to walk there herself. Remember, there's a long time span between when her mother last saw her, which was in the room with her, and when she woke up and realized that she was gone. So we have a long window of hours where something could have happened, that her cell phone was off, she didn't take it with her. I always find that very unusual, when young people, mature adults, don't take their cell phones with them, and nobody knows that, hey, I'm just taking a break.
Right, and she seemed to go on these walks. So that was the other part of it. It's not like she just out of the blue went on a walk. The sheriff said she's kind of a fitness enthusiast, likes to go on a walk. It seems like this was her regular route, but it does appear, that, how often does she take her cell phone with her on those walks? That's something that they have to look into. I know at times, like we've talked about manhunts, very different situation here, but in a lot of those cases, like I think if she were to get to Mexico, like she would have had to get into a vehicle, whether she was put in the vehicle or not. Like I find it hard to believe that at 19 years old, you'd be able to walk if it's a 2.5 hour drive to Laredo, going through that rural terrain, like you need to have resources if you're going to make that walk. I also think of if she was to buy anything, water, like you would need a credit card unless she had cash with her, which doesn't seem like it wouldn't. Like, what are some of the things to you that might set off? Like, I even think if she got into a vehicle, like there's license plate readers, a city bus, like they would have surveillance on that. I mean, what are some of the things that could tip off investigators at this point? And maybe what makes it even more concerning is a week later, we haven't heard of those things yet.
Exactly. So I think they're holding some information back. But if she was going across the border, and if she was in a car and she wasn't being detained, or if it was not voluntary, then we might not see her. She could be placed in a trunk, but there are car readers, there's surveillance around the border area that you would be able to see her. And I think law enforcement is really, really scratching their heads on this one, because it's almost as if she has vanished without a trace. It's a week long, and they are already searching in the areas. They're searching in the direction. So you figure you start at the center place, and I kind of said this yesterday. You start at the center of the missing, of the location where she was last seen, and you work your way out for miles going forward, which is why what we call a grid search, when you have people going across and looking through terrain, and that is so everybody is not rushing through. It's very coordinated. At this point, with all of the searches, currently they're searching nearby, they've gone out further, and they still don't have an answer. But where could she be without money, without food, without water, without being hurt, unconscious? I'm sure they are checking hospitals and medical centers and places like that. This is why this is so concerning, and imminent means that they are deeply concerned, because not only is this unusual, but it doesn't make sense that no one can locate her, or that she is not trying to seek out help.
And I know this is probably speculating, but I just typed in, as you had said, like they might be holding some information to the vest, because I thought of this morning. Like, I went to the Bexar County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, and the time we're recording this, it was about an hour ago, and they posted, there's a 14-year-old girl who's missing, and it's a missing persons case, and certainly very important for this person to be found as well. But the resources that are being used right now on Cammie's case, the national attention, the sheriff giving news conferences, they have a command center set up. I mean, sadly, it's a case where you do have teenagers that run off, and she's legally an adult, every single day, and you hope each family gets the closure that they're, maybe it's a runaway or someone that comes home. Like, there's something about this where this is getting more attention than if it was just a typical runaway situation.
Exactly, and that is why I think, and because they've used the term human trafficking, law enforcement doesn't necessarily use that term very loosely. We get a lot of people speculating about it, but when they use it, it is usually because they have some kind of something has set off the radar that there's potential there. And now you have another child that is missing, who is actually a young teenager. Even though Camila is 19, she's still considered an adult, and she can leave. However, you are right. A lot of resources are going into this, and I think they are withholding some information because they don't want to tip off somebody. And if they're not, they're doing a really good job of putting pressure on themselves to locate her. And the resources are substantive. I believe that they have some additional information. They're just not sharing all of that, which is really important that they don't share all of it. One of the things that I have found when looking for missing persons and individuals like this who may have gone off by themselves is sometimes people don't want to be found, but law enforcement has very coordinated steps to take, and working with families, and then people can be recovered. This seems a little different to me. This seems like they have a direction, a clear direction. They are absolutely looking in the direction of Mexico for some potential transportation, and which is why they have engaged law enforcement over there, and flyers are out and available in that area just in case she's spotted. This is very intentional work that they're doing. I also found out and heard that Homeland Security was involved as well, which would be usually HSI. Homeland Security is very broad, but Homeland Security Investigations has specialties when it comes to human trafficking investigations. They also have a lot of relationships. So they're still combing through video footage, still doing knock and talks and walking the grids. The family members are walking. But they have a lot of things that they need to do in order to see what direction they're finally going to go in. It's a week out. This is very long and not a good sign.
No, and just to, you would hope, and there are a lot of cases where people go missing for a long period of time, far longer than a week. But with tomorrow being a week, that seems like a very kind of important milestone in this. There have been stories out there about human trafficking. There are the cases where you see the truck get pulled over to the side of the road, and you might have someone who's an undocumented migrant inside. Families at times, like we see those types of stories when it comes to human trafficking. We don't know whether that's what we're dealing with here, but in your experience, I mean, what is the reality? Like, how realistic is it that this girl could have been walking on the side of the road, and here comes a human trafficker that would take her, and then suddenly she's brought into this underworld that sometimes is sensationalized. Sometimes it's hard, I think, through different media reports to understand, what's the type of stuff you see in the movies and what's the type of stuff you see, that's truly human trafficking that happens in our world. Just in your experience, kind of set the scene for us of whether or not this is what we're dealing with, but what that really is.
So when you think about human trafficking, we do, and because she in proximity to the border, that could be it, and they have maybe had some other incidents. But she could also be the victim of a kidnapping that could turn into human trafficking by somebody who was just a crime, a crime of opportunity, where somebody saw her, thought she was beautiful, and snatched her up. She could very well be in a home, in a location. Unlike on television, it's not as sensationalized as some people think. We know from other stories of people who have not necessarily been trafficked for sex and exploitation to others, but who have been held captive just for the sole purpose of the individual that wanted to have them. They have been kept in homes and under floorboards and in basements, and just in the same area or not too far from where they have been removed. Human trafficking can result in the sexual exploitation of others, but it can also be labor trafficking, organ trafficking, which we don't talk nearly enough about. But it is the proximity of the area closest to the border, and because at certain times they are looking traffickers, real traffickers, those who are involved in the trafficking and exploitation of women and girls specifically, sometimes men and boys, but often younger, based on what they're looking for. She would fit a demographic of somebody who might be the victim of a sex trafficking scheme and removed off the streets. And it could have been very well not the van, because people always look for the van, but a car pulling over to the side, asking her for directions, her leaning into the car and getting taken that way. Sometimes it can be a woman or a girl of the same age. Hey, can you show me this? Can you help me with this? I'm looking for my dog. Not always the television drama of it, but the reality is that people are getting snatched up for various reasons, and not with all of the dramatics, but very simple things that ordinary people would do every day to help someone out. She seemed like somebody that would give directions to someone else, help them look for a dog or something like that. So it doesn't have to be dramatic as much as that has to be the manner in which somebody uses to lure someone in. And because she didn't have her cell phone, it doesn't give us a way to trace her. Human trafficking schemes happen in America every single day, but not like on television. People are trapped in situations, searching for survival. Some people do things and they are walking around and still victims of trafficking schemes. So I don't want people to focus on the white van as much as I want them to focus on, do they have access to any video, any media? Did they see something? Is there something that they know? Do they know anything, not necessarily about her, but others who may still be in the area, but who may be caught up in some criminal activity and they're being hidden, or they know where other people are. So I don't want people to get too focused on the television aspect, but think ordinary things that people do every single day. Criminals are they are crimes of opportunity, like this could be, and there are very structured crimes in which human trafficking schemes, very well thought out schemes involving lots of people, can coordinate, if that makes sense. I know it was a lot of information, but stay focused on the small things as opposed to the big drama of it all.
Yeah, and you just think of, and I think that's really good context as well, because we do know that there's a lot of conversation about human trafficking, but sometimes it's like, what does it really look like? And it's not necessarily the person in the white van, but still incredibly dangerous. And yeah, I keep going back. If she did go into Mexico, it is just so easy to cross that border, especially on foot. They're not looking at passports. They're not looking in vehicles. It's kind of just, at least in my experience going over, it's kind of wave and come on by. It's not like when you come back into the U.S., and Border Patrol's asking what you did, how long you were there for. It's just not the same on that side. And so tomorrow will mark a week, hopefully some good news on the way, but a very scary situation. Sonny Slaughter, law enforcement instructor, thank you as always for being with us in Law and Crime. We appreciate it.
And thank you, Chris, for covering this story. Thank you for Law and Crime for all of the work that you've done all year long to, really hammer out the tough cases. And this is one that looks like it might take us into 2026. So thank you for your lens, your language, and being on Law and Crime. I'm humbled at every opportunity.
Well, we appreciate it, and hopefully get some good news for this family soon. Sonny, thanks. All right, once again, before we go, I do want to put the information up on your screen. If anyone watching this has information about where Cami may be or anything that can help in the search for her, to contact the Bexar County Sheriff's Office in Texas. Here's the number on the screen. And again, we're putting it in the episode description, 210-335-6000. You can also send a message to the BCSO Missing Persons Unit at missingpersons@bexar.org. That will do it for this episode of On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.